at, because I did get a chance to look at some of the questions, and I got to tell you, I laughed, by the way. but I'm going to go along with this program. Okay. First of all, I do not identify myself as a woman. I identify myself as a Black woman.
A Black woman.
Very different. Black. That's right. Very different. Okay. And I do that intentionally. And again, I understand the texture of the question, but in this day and age, it is so important to be absolutely crystal clear about some things. And I do not want to be lumped into any category other than being the mother of civilization. Therefore, I'm not just a woman. Being the mother of civilization, I am the Black woman. I am it. So we have to articulate that in this day and age to make it very clear that we're not talking about all this other hodgepodge stuff. We have to deal with identity in such a way that it gives the type of clarity in today's age that is necessary, because people are running around just calling themselves whatever, and that's fine. But when you start moving into a more focused and kind of ancestral and also a traditional kind of manner when it comes to our people, then you need to know what the hell you're talking about.
I agree. Because I identify myself as a Black woman with a capital B. That's what I say. That's what I write all the time.
I know that's right. But so now, I'm sorry, I digress. What was the actual question again?
You answered it perfectly. You know, it was identifying how does being a woman define your identity? You already said it. I'm a Black woman with a capital B.
Okay, great.
I'm a Black woman with a capital B.
Right.
But at the same time, has being this Black woman with a capital B, we're gonna add that piece onto it. Has it, been challenging to, like, how do you define what fuels you to fight for our civil liberties?
Well, I don't. No, let me rephrase that. Okay. Civil liberties. Well. That's a tricky question in a way, and only because I generally don't prescribe to that. But I'll, I'll go along with the format for tonight.
Oh no, you don't have to. We just wanted to have some type of dialogue with you. Okay.
No, I want to, and the reason is because I think I do understand Brother Dan's logic in putting some of these questions together, because people need to hear my response in this way. This system has put a lot of things out there for us, and a lot of it is either not only hypocrisy, but it is an illusion, and that puts it mildly. And so when we talk about civil liberties, who are we talking about? Because when you do understand the Constitution, you got to know that they weren't talking about us. That didn't include us. And so the notion that some have about equality and these kinds of things, we have to really at some point seriously examine how applicable that was and is to us. And how, even though certain laws have been changed, did in fact it mean that we were going to have so-called civil liberties? All that is trickery. Just like, for example, and you mentioned earlier, my sister, about going to register to vote. Mm-hmm. So how many people know that people like you and I, for the most part, never elect the president?
Not many.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care what lever you push. Republican, Democrat, green, purple, doesn't matter. When you go to the poll, that has nothing to do with you electing the president of the United States at that time. Absolutely nothing. You see, and so we're not taught the truth or told the truth. We keep buying into these illusions. And no, I'm not saying don't vote. I'm just saying our people died and suffered. They got dogs bit them. They got water holes. They got beaten, and some of them even died, needless to say, for this so-called right to vote. But what happened was people forgot to understand they didn't do all of that for us to be stupid. And what I mean by that is just because you go and vote, for who? And how did them people get on the ballot in the first place? Who put them there? And anyway, let me go back to the president piece. The president is selected by what's known as an electoral college. So when you go to vote for a president of the United States, best believe that has nothing to do with your or mine or anyone else's that's, walking through these streets on the grassroots level. Ain't got nothing to do with none of that. That data is used for some other purposes. It's like census almost. So while on the local levels, you can in fact elect and select, because most of that stuff is selected also. Because usually you're not going to get the average person in there. You're going to get somebody in there who is going to follow the party line. Okay, unless they're running as an independent, which most won't or can't. But for you to get the endorsement of the party, then that means you're going to do what the party tells you to do for the most part, right? So we don't understand the politics. And so we need to make certain that as we encourage people to register to vote, we better deal with some real education. Because if not, all we're doing is fueling the system of white supremacy.
That's what I was trying to explain to some people once, like, they wanted to know, like, what was my role and why I do what I do. Is because exactly what you said. We influence. The electional processes are influenced, and that's not meaning in a negative way. It means that people get together to put people where they want them to be. And we need to recognize that, because we need to do some influencing as well. And even in some of the stuff that I've done, I've seen it happen. I've seen it where things came up and we have identified people to be able to put in those positions and supported them, influenced them, but not just for a negative reason. Not for a negative reason at all, but influenced them so that they could step up, because we felt that they would do good in those positions, and then we supported them through the process. A lot of people do not realize that, but let's get off of that kick. So I want to go back to the Million Woman March, that phenomenon that we experienced, that was organized, and we want to know, what was your process when you put this together? And how did you cope with the emotional aspects of it? And I know it had to be some coming from a psychological perspective.
Absolutely.
It wasn't easy. And I believe in like the whole person. So we don't have to be tough for everything, because that's not human. So like, we want to know, we want to know about the work you did and how you felt about it.
Well, interestingly enough, it's still a process. And I'm still processing it all, because once you start moving into what we call the movement or the struggle, what you realize is it is so multifaceted, and it is so much more to it than what meets the eye. For example, a lot of people are running around now talking about Black Lives Matter. So it's a cliche, it's a phrase, it's a, something hot to say. Whereas years ago it was Black Power or Free the Land or other different slogans or whatever. But those things came out of something that really represented something. So when you do the history of how did the phrase Black Power come into existence, who was it that brought it into existence and why? Or Free the Land, or some of the other phrases that we're more familiar with. But when you start looking at, and most don't, by the way, Black Lives Matter. Why is that so catchy and so popular? And so for me, I don't say it. I say Black life is the matter. That's my slogan and phrase. And that's what my t-shirts say. Black life is the matter. because I deal with things from a metaphysical standpoint as well as a physical. And that means, you know what matter is when it comes to the area of physics. So Black life is the matter. You
that
see,
is awesome.
It's the matter that makes all of this stuff move. For real, for real. So I don't take these things lightly at all. And again, I have to also say very clearly that whenever you have entities financing your movement, you best believe it's going to represent some other stuff. You see, I've never had a grant. I've never had corporate sponsoring. And so George Soros and others did not give me $6 to $10 million. I'm not expecting it and not looking for it. My point is that other folks' agendas always are able to seep into our pain and suffering. Exactly. And most will not take the time to do the studying or the research to really understand what's really going on, who's really behind it. So that's why, I board words like civil liberties, even though I understand, the language, because I do have somewhat of a background in law. But again, in this day and age, I have to try to bring about a direction or insight into some other dynamics of things. And so I'm not going to keep repeating the stuff that they gave us years ago, and we didn't know any better because they made sure we didn't. But nowadays, you have such access to information, and it behooves us beyond a point to definitely change things, not only in our actions, but even in our jargon, even in how we're communicating with each other, because it's trickery. Most know there's 6 major corporations that control the mass media. So what they put out and the way they put out it is about, and you, my sister, you are so on point in terms of behavior, because folks' behavior is not only being manipulated,
very much so.
It's not only being misdirected, or shall I say, tweet. It's almost like it's tweeted, or what is it? What's the other word? There's another word for a tweet. But anyway, our people are really right now, they have no idea what's really going on with this COVID thing, how anytime you can have a system all of a sudden shut everything down, everything. And you notice the rebellion didn't come until after the murder of a Black man. The rebellion didn't come when they was told you couldn't go to work. Rebellion didn't come when they said you can't go to school, you can't go to the store, you have to wear a mask, you can't assemble more than 20. No rebellions for any of that. So they have already manipulated and controlled folks to the degree that they got them doing whatever they want them to do and ask no real questions. Now, right. If that's not behavior modification and engineering at its best, right before our eyes, and no, they've also said they expect another wave to come probably around the flu season.
September.
They've also, so we're sitting back going, now people are getting a little, uneasy about this thing now because they're kind of tired and fed up, but they're still not making any plans